the government, the agencies that are assigned with the responsibility of inspection, the international organization like ITED that was earlier mentioned by the first speaker, the union and the stakeholder, including the ship owners. This collaboration is very, very essential if safety will be guaranteed in the workplace for seafarers. And also the environment. Just like the first speaker also lay emphasis on the environment. If the environment is not also safe, like guaranteeing security, you discover that one of the emerging threats to the well-being and the welfare of seafarers is piracy and robbery attack. And this is pronounced at the Gulf of Guinea. And so in ensuring that the seafarers' safety are guaranteed, there must be environment whereby the security of the vessels while sailing is guaranteed, so as not to be prone to piracy attack and what have you. And also, in talking about the navigating the emerging threat to seafarer welfare and well-being, another thing that is so essential that we also need to look at is addressing the trauma of seafarers when such things happen. For instance, for a seafarer that was engaged in piracy attack, either you believe it or not, by the time that seafarer disembarked from that vessel, the trauma, the remembering what happened, the psychological effect, all this also affect the well-being of the seafarer. And finally, as I close on this topic, there is need for the regulatory authority to prioritize the safety of seafarers while at workplace. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you for the message.
Thank you, Pastor Bose. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Bose.
Yes, Barrister.
Yes.
Do we have questions?
Well, I think my own is by way of intervention, a brief intervention, and I think that I want to look at it beyond the seafarers' welfare and well-being while on board and in active service. I think that from the of one of the oldest seafarers in Nigeria who survived the MV Gurara accident, I think that report brought to the fore something that is very, very serious that goes beyond a seafarer's welfare and well-being while on board a vessel. I think it points to us that even while seafarers have served this country diligently and in fact served the global community diligently, they need to be taken care of even after retirement from active service, knowing that the nature of seafaring is such that you can't be a seafarer in your late 50s, in your 60s. Unlike other professions where seafarers, I don't know if I'm still spot on, unlike other professions where you can work beyond 60 and you still continue to fend for your family and you're able to fend for your family. Seafaring is not like that. So, and the huge sacrifice and risk they take. I think we should look beyond life on board the vessel when we talk about prioritizing welfare. I'm looking forward to the day that the Seafarers Union in Nigeria, Mawud, senior staff senior staff for arm of
Merchant Navy,
the body Merchant Navy of the seafaring profession would come together and think of setting up, and indeed setting up Seafarers Welfare Trust Fund, where they would get government to donate, where they would get seafarers to donate, where they would donate from the check-off dues they collect from seafarers to cater for some of these squalid conditions in which we see seafarers live years after they retire. For instance, a scheme that can help seafarer set up after retirement by way of assistance. I am sure that if we pursue that as a policy and drive it home, a number of seafarers' squalid condition of living will be addressed. For instance, a seafarer retires and he wants to settle into business. A loan can be made available to that seafarer from such fund. Seafarers that find themselves in situations of ill-health could be helped from such funds, trust funds. So we should begin to look at the welfare and well-being of seafarer beyond the ship, because that is part of what, even after retirement, that is something for them from the
Secretariat is freezing.
Okay, I think we are back now.
Community, which they have served. I traverse the oceans of the world.
All right.
Intervention. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you, Barrister, for that intervention. From the paper, it's clearly that threat is real, as well as solution to that threat is necessary. And I think your intervention is in line with that. Thank you for that. We won't waste time. Let's take the next paper by Moses. If you are ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
But
Okay.
I'm seeing.
Okay, Mr. Aina was going to ask a question. I don't know. Should he continue?
We take it after that.
Okay. All right, sir.
So the next person, you can go ahead.
I'm trying to share my screen. I don't know if you can see it. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen? I'm trying to share my screen.
Loud and share. Loud and share. We can hear you.
Okay,
you
great.
can go ahead.
But we can't see your screen yet.
You can see my screen.
Okay, screen sharing. Yes.
We can't see it. It's black.
Okay. Well, basically, I'm trying to get it up so that
you can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, basically, I've been asked to speak on prioritizing safety. Good morning, all. Prioritizing safety in the maritime industry and the future of seafaring in the Gulf of Guinea region. Now, this prioritization has been repeated time and time again in the course of this conversation, from the first speaker to the second speaker talks about prioritizing safety. It just simply implies that there is more to safety in the maritime industry, especially in the Gulf of Guinea. Piracy in the Gulf of Guinea has been on the increase over time, but lately they've been stopgaps that have been put in place to ensure that there's safety in the region. Now, I want to talk about the Gulf of Guinea nations, to give us a background of what the entire Gulf of Guinea entails. Now, this region covers Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Sao Tome and Principe, Republic of Congo, and Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as Angola. I did a little graph here which shows the dimension of where this location is in the Gulf of Guinea. Now, in prioritizing, the importance of the Gulf of Guinea cannot be overemphasized. According to Wikipedia, over 1,500 fishing vessels, tankers, cargo ships navigate the water of Gulf of Guinea on daily basis. This record is...
Sorry to interrupt you, Doctor. Sorry to interrupt you. Please, if you have materials you want to share with us, can you please find a way? Because
yes,
it's showing screen sharing, but we're not seeing it.
Okay,
so I don't know.
Yeah, there's a screen that I tried to
like
share
what you are saying
right
is very
now.
interesting for us.
Yeah, we can have the paper after the presentation.
Go ahead, please.
We can have the paper after the presentation, please.
Okay.
Yes, I'll share the slide after you can.
Go ahead.
All right,
go ahead.
No problem.
So like I was saying, the important industry. Can you hear me now? Yes, I've continued. Can you hear me?
We are hearing you. We are hearing you. We can hear you.
Continue. Go ahead.
We can hear you, Moses. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So as I was saying, the importance of the Gulf of Guinea in terms of maritime cannot be overemphasized. According to Wikipedia, over 1,500 fishing vessels, tankers, cargo ships navigate the waters of the Gulf of Guinea on a daily basis. Now, we don't want to talk about the capacity and the tonnage that this carries in the Gulf of Guinea across these countries that we have mentioned. Now, security spike was mentioned by the second speaker, the issue of security and piracy and armed robbery in this region, in seafaring generally. Now, for the Gulf of Guinea, it's on the increase. It didn't start here, but our people have grown the impact of it in the region because of the advent of oil. There are threats to the Gulf of Guinea. Major threats to the Gulf of Guinea are piracy and armed robbery, pollution of the marine ecosystem, climate change, natural disaster, and coastline erosion. There's no gainsaying in the effect of piracy in Nigeria and the environs in terms of Gulf of Guinea. Piracy, for example, was very high as at the year 2021, between 2021 and 2022. But over the years, there have been institutions coming together, regional collaborations in the Gulf of Guinea to ensure that piracy is reduced. And no wonder NIMASA set up the Deep Blue project to curb piracy, which majorly aims at identification of vessels through the automatic identification system to ensure that there is no violence or piracy is brought to the minimum level. Pollution of the marine ecosystem can also be a problem, a threat to the environment, because we need fishes, we need all the ecosystem to work for navigation to be successful. Apart from the life above, apart from sailing the vessel, according to MAPL, there is need for the ecosystem in the water to also survive, to protect the lives of marine animals. Climate change is not unique in the Gulf of Guinea. It doesn't, there's nothing unique about it. It's a global thing. The climate continues to change and it affects one way or the other, navigation from one point to the other. So Gulf of Guinea is not left out in the impact of climate change and causes of natural disaster from time to time. Coastline erosion is one of the major issues that is bedeviling our Gulf of Guinea generally, because lots of people have not paid attention. Lots of environmental impact assessment before projects are done on the coastline are actually very minimal. So those things can actually pose threat to sailing from time to time and also prevent successful sail from one place to the other while trying to pollute the water as well. So there are actually several approaches to resolving these threats in the Gulf of Guinea. And most of the approaches should be multifaceted. So I've reviewed a few approaches that we can use in the Gulf of Guinea to prioritize the safety of seafarers. One is enhancing regional cooperation and information sharing among coastal states. That's why I'm happy that we have the first speaker on this program who is not from here but understands how our region works. You know, regional cooperation in form of Abuja MOU has also helped in port state control inspections to share information from time to time. One of the reasons why Abuja MOU was held and MOLCA is to ensure that there's large cooperation. So what we need to do to reduce threats in the Gulf of Guinea is probably to collaborate more, increase the regional cooperation and information sharing among these coastal states that I mentioned earlier. Improving maritime domain awareness through better surveillance and intelligence gathering. This is also a digitized process. This is exactly what NIMASA is attempting to do in the Gulf of Guinea to improve the domain awareness through surveillance and intelligence gathering. The establishment of the Deep Blue project, which I mentioned earlier, is one of the ways that government in this region is collaborating. There have been times where information sharing has been on the increase. From time to time, they need to collaborate. I can recall recently the visit by Ghana Maritime Administration to Nigeria to learn a few things about the cabotage. All these are part of the stop blocks that can actually help prevent the risk and grow safety in the region. If information sharing is given, you can actually trace criminals from one region to the other as they cross from one part of the water to the other. Strengthening port and coastal security measures to deter and respond to threats. This also complements the earlier points that I raised, that strengthening port and coastal security. This falls under International Ship and Port Security Code, the ISPS. They need to grow collaboration with ISPS so that when port things change from one region to the other, it will help to foster safety and cooperation among the region. Developing specialized training and equipment for seafarers and security personnel. Now, it is not enough that we have from time to time the ISPS training and retraining. There's also need for seafarers to engage in specialized training on how to protect themselves. Apart from STCW 95 as amended, there'll be need for them to actually have specialized training in different forms of safety measures that they can take in cases of emergency and piracy attack. Fostering public-private partnership to mobilize resources and share best practice. Now, governments all over the world have engaged the services of private security personnel and other organizations to work. Nigeria is not left out. I don't think the entire Gulf of Guinea is left out in the privatization of certain aspects of seafaring and maritime generally. You know, take for the port concession in Nigeria and other parts of the world is a way of bringing the private sector into the sea trade to ensure that everybody participates and then information sharing is given. One of the ways we can prioritize safety for seafarers is the design of the vessel. Vessel design and construction. Ensuring ships are designed and built to the highest safety standard with robust safety features and redundancy to enhance seafarers' safety. If the vessels are built in a way, the MLC prescribed certain ways that vessels should be built, including accommodation, prescribing 1.5 square meter for each person on board an accommodation, shared accommodation cabin to ensure that there's enough space and enough headroom for a seafarer to occupy. Now, but vessels that were built before the MLC came into force in different countries, as the case might be because of late ratification by some countries, are exempted. They provide part of the substantive equivalence that some of the countries in the Gulf of Guinea may adopt. However, those that are built after the convention came into force were given advice to ensure that there's enough headroom and space for seafarers to occupy in terms of living and working condition provisions. But in support of that, there's also need to ensure that advanced technology is taken into cognizance when these vessels are being built. Navigational safety. Improving navigational safety system, weather forecasting and communication to help ships avoid collision, grounding, and other incidents that may affect seamless sail of vessels. Navigational safety is also one of the key instruments. Lately, there have been lots of automation in shipping. And so collision and all that, forecasting of the weather, provision of information before vessel sails, and all that are incorporated into navigational safety, which is one of the issues that we must bring to the fore when making policies in regards to sailing of vessels and vessel design and navigational equipment, and also crew training and competency. This is one of the key areas. I believe the second speaker mentioned it when he said there's need for us to focus on training and retraining of seafarers to ensure that they focus on safety procedures and emergency responses. Crew and resource management are key to moving vessels from one point to the other. So prioritizing their safety will just be an additional plug. Regulatory oversight. If we strengthen regulatory oversight from one country to the other in the region, it will help further to enhance the provisions of safety in terms of the seafarers' operation at sea, both at the national and international level, to hold the industry accountable. Technology adoption. Leveraging of emergency technologies like autonomous system, predictive analytics, and digital communication to enhance safety and decision-making. Lots of artificial intelligence have been brought into shipping and other sectors of the global economy today. And shipping is not left out. As this advancement is coming in, there is need for seafarers to be trained and retrained over time to ensure that the use of AI and autonomous systems in different forms of navigational system are captured and recognized accordingly. And the seafarer is aware of how they operate. By prioritizing safety across these areas, the maritime industry in the Gulf of Guinea can work towards a more secure and sustainable future for seafaring. This will be crucial for supporting economic development, trade, and overall well-being of seafarers and coastal communities in the region. In conclusion, the future of seafaring in the Gulf of Guinea will depend on the region's ability to address complex challenges of maritime security, infrastructural development, and regional cooperation, while also adapting to emerging environmental and technological trends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moses.
Thank you very much. If there's any question.
So, Barrister?
Yes.
I will share the slide with Mike, and then you can share with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Do we continue to the last before we take question generally? Or do we have question for Moses?
Maybe we should take the last, and then we can come back if you have any interventions and questions.
Okay, thank you. Fortunately, I'm presenting the last one.
Ah, good.
It's about seafarers' welfare and its implication to ship safety. The question is, what is welfare? What is ship safety? Why is it important? And how does that connect with the contribution that seafarer has to do to make marine environment safer? Let's start with the question of welfare. The welfare is understood by almost everyone, myself, yourself, and in different ways. For me, if you talk about welfare, the very first thing that comes to my mind will be about food. How do I wake up every day? I have access to breakfast. It's like there's noise at the background. Can the secretariat mute those who are here? So what I mean by that is different people understand welfare at different times and what it means to them. But studies upon studies have come up with the definition of welfare in different ways. If you go to developed area, let's say UK, for instance, if you mention welfare, the very first thing that comes to your mind is benefits. So the same thing, you can summarize the terms welfare going by a study, a research, as mean anything that has to do with someone's happiness, anything that has to do with someone's health, anything that has to do with someone's security. And lastly, anything that has to do with someone's safety. You can see. Now, talking about safety of ships. We're now talking about seafarer. Come to think about it. We're talking about 1.5 plus number of certain category of workers that contribute to the entire world maritime sector. The question is, do ships and seafarers need to contribute to that maritime sector? It again takes you to the thinking about the entire contribution that the seafarers are making to even the global economy. We've had time and time again, it's been mentioned about how ships contribute to the larger movement of cargo globally, much more than any means of transport. Aside from that, we've had about the contribution in the course of that trade to even marine environment. We've also had that in the course of doing that, the first trade. We've also had the speaker that had just also spoken about the level of challenge that is being faced in the course of this special trade. So you can see that clearly this little number of group of workers called seafarers have been doing quite a lot to contribute and even make the entire environment that the global world benefits in one way or the other safer. So we can conclude and say, yes, there's a connection between what Seafarer does as well as the vessels they work in contributing to make the marine environment safer. But again, what is the implication? The implication here, as from the very first paper of the first speaker, it means that yes, they are doing so under numerous threats. And those threats connect with their psychological and physiological, mental well-being. And so that is where it is. And in that connection, what is it that is being done to enable them continue to contribute to the making of the maritime sector a safer place? I listened to the IMO Secretary General this past week when he was on board a vessel and was saying that this year's theme is to hear from the seafarer themselves about the safety tips they do have while on board and how that as a single unit of an area that is contributing so enormously to the entire global world. So what does that mean? It means without the action or without what they are doing within the minimum standard coming from all nations as well as global standard to make sure that they work in a safe environment, they make sure that the vessels of which has been their working places are safe, then it might endanger the entire marine environment as well. So here, what is the main key thing that needs to be done or to be focused on. One, it is completely agreed that welfare is key to seafarers. And as I've earlier mentioned, when you look at those elements that make up of welfare, health, for instance, happiness as another one, safety and security while on board. In all the studies that have been out there, if you go to the International Seafarer Welfare Assistance Network, if you go to the website of the International Transport Workers Federation Seafarer Trust, if you go to the website of submissions that have been contributing to the area of welfare, they have been doing that, and you can see the connection on how that has been able to help to meet their need at ports, on board, as well as at home. So in one of my studies, a survey, I came to meet these seafarers, and I asked, what do you think in the order of priority are the main things that keeps you or connects you with the level that you can give your maximum output while on board a ship? The very first thing the seafarer mentioned was connecting him with his family, aside from any other thing. And that means it brings you to the issue of how important a seafarer sees himself, even at the condition of being isolated from the family. And that takes us to the issue of communication. So it then means that they are working in isolation and disconnected from the family. A number of things comes into mind, even though their physical presence is on board the vessel. So you can see that any compromise on the level of welfare of seafarer has an implication on his mental health, psychological well-being, and the output of what comes out from working, from on board the vessel. We've seen again, historically, that the ship's accidents are connected to human error. A number of studies, again, have shown that those comes as a result of psychological or physiological mental well-being. It will interest you that the Convention of Safety of Life at Sea came about as a result of ship's accident. And of course, what is it focusing on? It's focusing on the life of the seafarer. And it's not far-fetched within the limit of the welfare and well-being of seafarers. Subsequent accidents, again and again, have been traced to human error. And so, on this, it is important that we look at, you cannot, on this, you cannot separate the welfare of a seafarer from a ship, from safety, as well as their well-being. So, on this year's team that is focusing on seafarers' welfare, and then looking at the contribution, seafarers' safety, and looking at how that contributes to make the marine environment safe. That can be done through the International Labor Organization's Maritime Labor Convention 2006, again, that the world recognize that it is important to address holistically anything that has to do with the seafarers' welfare and well-being. Someone mentioned the issue of COVID-19. Yes, it has further revealed a number of challenges, not on the part of only the seafarer, but on the part of all stakeholders towards the seafarers. So for that little number of community of special workers to continue to make the marine environment safe, it is a two-way process. The stakeholders need to contribute to what it is expected of the seafarer to continue to make not only the vessel safe, but also the entire marine environment safer. And doing that, that's why in that Maritime Labor Convention 2006, 16 areas, an amendment again keeps coming, all in an effort to make sure that the standard is updated to meet with the challenges seafarers face. So it is clear that there's a connection between the welfare of seafarer and the ship's and the ship's safety, for the fact that the environment they are working is hazardous. Apart from being hazardous, poses a number of threats that has been earlier on outlined in terms of security, in terms of health, and in terms of their mental well-being and alertness. And to always ensure that their state of well-being meets the minimum standard to be able to give the maximum output of them. Their effort in making the maritime sector safer connect with the contribution of everyone else. I think on this note, the topic will continue to have a number of discourse from now on, looking at the challenges that they face, not only at this time, but continuously. The most important thing is to be able to meet that challenge. Barrister made mention of something, of an idea, of a welfare fund. In the developed world, that is what is going on. It's just beyond just even the association. It has become the business of everyone who benefits from the maritime sector. And so the welfare board, through this program today, should begin to reflect on those ways where it can bring about a lasting solution or contribution to seafarers while at work. It is on this that I bring this to conclusion, and over to you, Barrister. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amos Kujui. Always at your best when you talk about seafarers and their welfare. And I think one of the takeaways for me today from your presentation is that beyond good salaries, beyond making the environment physically safe for the seafarer on board ship, that there are intangible things that the seafarer also requires to be in a psychological and mental state, and be able to focus on his work, which in turn enhances safety and security while on board. One of those things you mentioned is communication with the family. This very intangible factor goes a long way in helping the seafarer be at his best on board. You presented it in form of isolation from the family. And it shows how attached we are to our family, whether we are with them physically or we are separated from them, physically. And that constantly availing the seafarer the opportunity, taking advantage of modern communication, taking advantage of the use of AI and other developments in this area. That factor of connecting the seafarer to his family anywhere he is, at any time that he needs to communicate with his family, is a very big boost to his well-being, mentally, psychologically, physically. That is very, very big takeaway for me from your presentation. And I'm happy you have mentioned here that there are so many developments going on at the level of International Maritime Organization, including the various amendments that have been taking place with regards to the MLC 2006. And we continue to share the concerns of seafarers, which are also our concerns, because without seafarers, the life we enjoy onshore is threatened, because 90% of global trade today is driven by seafarers through the use of ships and water. So this conversation, we are not wasting time when we celebrate, when we mark a Seafarers Day. It's not a waste of time. It is something that we owe. And you also made a point here that even when I suggested the Seafarers Welfare Trust Fund, that it goes beyond ship owners. It goes beyond government. It goes beyond the labor union. And it touches on everybody who enjoys the services of seafarers. It means those of us, maritime lawyers, we also owe a responsibility to contribute to that fund. It means that the man who is trading at Alaba, who imports, the man who is at Idumota, the man who is at Newi, the man who is at the Wuse market in Abuja, the man who is in Sabongari market in Kano, the man who is everywhere, every trading post, that he has a responsibility to contribute to seafarers' welfare by making a little contribution to make sure that seafarers, even after they leave the ship, that they are taken care of, because that is legacy. It is legacy. When a seafarer that is serving today sees that a seafarer who has retired 10 years ago is living as a beggar, is living in squalor, that motivation is not going to be there to continue to give his best. But when he looks back to say, even after service, life goes on, life is good, I think that is one legacy that we'll continue to preach and propagate at the level of National Seafarers Welfare Board, just like it's done in advanced countries. I am here today. I'm speaking from the UK. I'm here on holiday. I look around here. I see how the aged are being taken care of. I see opportunities for them. I see parks. I see them go out. These are retirees. from different professions. And I'm sure among them, there are seafarers. When we make our environment in the third world better, when we work and ensure that those who have genuinely served humanity are also recognized, I think it will be the best for us and our future in Africa. Thank you very much, Dr. Kuje, for a very well-grounded presentation. I'm always pleased to hear you, and I'm sure all of us are pleased to hear you whenever you talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Secretariat questions?
Yeah. Let me use Let me use this opportunity to congratulate every one of us for witnessing yet another day of the Seafarers. I wish us a prosperous year. Yeah, I won't listen to all the speakers. Let me just summarize my question. According to the theme of the celebration, they are looking at safety and the contribution of seafarers in ensuring safety of the maritime sector. A seafarer, I'm saying, let me look at the seafarer as somebody that is out there to earn a living, just as anybody all over the world. And we have economic crisis in almost every block of the world today. We have political war, we have geopolitical war, we have a lot of crises. And let me use the example of what happened at the Red Sea in the past 10 days now. I think on June 12th, a motor tanker was hit and seafarers died inside. Same thing about 2 weeks ago also, or 3 weeks ago. So is there anything that the seafarers can do to stem the tide of this geopolitical war, the economic crisis, this issue of militancy, because it has negative impact on the welfare and well-being of the seafarers? How can you be on board a vessel? You cannot sleep and close your two eyes. Your family, they don't know whether you will return or not. So I just want to hear our opinion or the way we can navigate around this threat. The way forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's a very important.
Go ahead, Dr. Kuje.
Okay, that's a very good one. Challenges, the presentations we've had today, if we categorize the challenge, you can look at them at national and international. The two organizations, International Maritime Labour, International Labour Organizations, as well as IMO, and even the UN, have conventions, standards that nations at their national level brings about to ensure that vessels while trading comply with those standards. With what you say, you can see that within the national standard, if a country ratify those conventions of both ILO and IMO, they are expected to comply with those standards at a national level. The rest, you can see what happened at the Red Sea, and you see the response at various levels as a result of what is actually going on. Means that it's just beyond a national intervention, I mean, a national challenge. It goes beyond a national challenge. So that becomes now an international challenge. We are very much aware of what is going on there. And so this you will see happening again and again. Who is?
Madam Deborah, please mute your mic.
Can you mute Deborah?
Ambassador Deborah, please mute your mic. Please mute your mic.
You can do that. So what I'm saying in essence is that looking at the level of the challenges, and particularly this specific one that you mentioned, it comes nationally. You see them at national level and you see them international at international level. In fact, 2 weeks ago, there is this joint IMO-ILO database that keeps receiving complaints from either seafarer, from either individual seafarer, company, or organization. You go there, you will see that seafarers who are either being abandoned are in that database. Some who are criminalized, who are unfairly treated, and so on and so forth. This is what you see. So what can be done? What can be done? One, for me, what can be done? It starts from them. Starting from them means communicating every of those challenges. Let's say, of course, you talk about piracy, you talk about other challenges. Communication is key. At any point in time, when they are faced with those challenges, there are means of alerting it to even the immediate local environment before going international. We had an experience where a seafarer was abandoned, and it seems everyone has left him to face, left them to face their challenge themselves. So, but eventually it was resolved. How? Because he alerted and even escalated beyond the national level. So that's what I mean by him taking up to start by alerting the regulatory body about the challenge. We've also had an experience whereby some seafarers, before you know, you find them in places like prison. And then you ask questions, you have no clue, you have no information, but here they are. So I think coming from them, they need to alert that. Some of them do report, and some, you only find them at when it is difficult to understand how they get to that environment. So talking about the one at that's just happened 2 weeks ago, which has attracted the attention of the global community, and I think at that level, the idea of addressing it will start at that diplomatic level or at that international level, going by what is happening currently within that region. And we know it's because of that challenge that such thing happened. And I think it has attracted the attention of the global community about what has happened. Challenge, yes. Oftentimes we will see it happening. And what should be done? For me, you alert it to the appropriate authority, or you alert it. If they can't do anything, you alert it. Once it goes, especially once anything goes public, in one way or the other, it will receive a response. I give an example of a seafarer that I know that was abandoned. Eventually, it goes to the level of IMO, and then the national authority has no any other this thing than to act. And that's how it was resolved. So there may be many approaches to getting some of these challenges addressed. But the most important thing is, let's even know that you have a problem. I think by that, then solution can come in one way or the other. I think that's what I can say along that. I see someone has continuously raised his hand. Yes.
It's called Live at Sea. Who is this Live at Sea?
Live at Sea.
Live at Sea, yes. Your hand is up. You can make your intervention or ask your question. Live at Sea.
Yes, Live at Sea. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Live at Sea.
Good morning. Yes.
Yeah, morning.
Live at Sea. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Good morning. I am very, very delighted and happy that
Please, may we know your name? May we know your name, please? May we know your name? Identify yourself.
Okay. Good morning. Sorry about that. My name is Agaba, and I'm from Life at Sea. Life at Sea is a community of seafarers, and we're a group of seafarers. We have a community where we come together to discuss issues like this, and I'm very delighted because this is a time of the year where we get to discuss seafarers, because seafarers, when you talk about the maritime industry, most times they begin to talk about other things and they marginalize seafarers. They do not really talk about seafarers. So this time of the year is a time we get to talk about seafarers. So I've listened carefully from the first speaker to pastor, to doctor, and also to barrister. It's been a delight and it's been very, very insightful. Now, we don't have to throw the fact that regardless of all the conventions and all the laws, safety begins with the seafarer. Safety begins with the seafarer. Regardless of whatever modalities we put in place, it begins with the seafarer. Now, and we have already established from listening to all the speakers that the psychological and the physiological mental wellness of the seafarer is very paramount. Now, I just have a question which is related to the question barrister asked the first speaker before he left. Now, the question is, we have had reports when we have our little meetings as seafarers, when we have our little meetings as seafarers, we come to discuss as seafarers. We've had numerous reports of racial abuse and discrimination of seafarers on board. Now, my question is, what can we do to curb this racial abuse of seafarers? And how can we report these issues without seafarers being victimized after reporting these issues of racial abuse and discrimination? Because if someone is being racially abused, then you have been taught now the psychological wellness and the mental well-being of that person is not going to be in shape. Thereby, it's going to hamper the person's thinking, which will lead to human error, and we are going to have an issue with safety. So my question is, once again, what can we do to curb racial discrimination on board, and how can we report without a seafarer being victimized? Thank you very much once again.
Yeah, I would like to talk on that if I'm permitted to.
Can we hear you, Moses?
I would also like to throw a little more light to that too.
Yeah. Okay, we start
so
with Moses and Pastor.
Okay, basically, racial abuses are known globally, and it is not new. So the MLC came to handle most of that. There was an amendment in 2019 that talks about the convention, and it's in fact the 2019 amendment has come into force. Dr. Kuje mentioned earlier about the 16 areas that includes this particular amendment on measures to protect seafarers against shipboard harassment and bullying. This particular concept comes under it. We've had several reports in in the course of my job of seafarers coming in to complain that they were racially abused, or that a particular captain who is not of his race is intimidating him or being biased on the grounds that he's from a particular kind of race. However, there is no global plug against that yet, but yes, there is on-board complaint procedure. Now, the on-board complaint procedure that the Maritime Labour Convention 2006 recommended has created room for people to report either within the vessel or outside. You either report to your head of department. If it doesn't work, you reach out to the DPA. If that fails, which of course is from the ship owner, you can write to the administration. Lots of seafarers have written to the administration to ensure that issues like this are resolved. You're correct that if they are not resolved, it can actually affect negatively the seafarers concerned. If he's on board and he's not able to express himself efficiently, it can affect him. And if he's being bullied on the ground of his race, then it's also a problem. And most times in our system, the MLC has made it easy, but people fail to explore the option, perhaps because they are not sure of getting the kind of feedback or instant response. There are procedures for that, but an absolute formula that eradicates it completely does not exist yet. But I believe that as the book writers continue to think about methodologies and all that, one of the key plugs is multiculturalism on board. If you have more than one tribe or more than one race on board and everybody is mixing up, it's a lot easier than when you have a divide between having a high number of a particular race as against another particular race, or you have even within the same race of people, there's also conflict on board. So conflict on board is expected, but what MLC is doing and what most administrations are doing is to ensure that it is reduced to the minimal. The ILO and the IMO have been able to talk a lot about decent work. That decent work agenda is to ensure that nobody goes through anything and the person goes through anything that is adverse, in addition to the person being paid the adequate remuneration for the work done. However, if we assume that there's going to be a solution, that one formula that fits all, no. The key thing the ILO did is each nation is allowed to adopt measures that best suit them in resolving their problem. Like, a vessel is a piece of a country floating at sea. So each country has a law that prevails on board the vessel, which is the flag that the vessel is flying. But if there are conflicts and the conflict is outside the jurisdiction of the seafarer's origin, first point of call is to write. But then the question is, if the person that is responsible for this particular conflict or bullying is the captain, you're going to have a problem getting past the captain. You need to go directly to the DPA. So there are problems and then there are plugs and ways that you can actually manage it. However, every situation has peculiar issues. There is no one formula fits all, but the onboard complaint procedure is a way to start. And it specifies complaint to the head of department. If it doesn't work, you complain through the captain. If it doesn't work, you go to the DPA. If that fails, you go to the ship owner. If the ship owner fails, you go to the administration. If the administration fails, then you go to ILO. And then if ILO is delaying, you can also write to the International Transport Federation. So there are actually procedures for reporting. Thank you.
Pastor, let's have.
Well, the last speaker have just analyzed the procedure when it comes to bullying, when it comes to racial discrimination. But one other aspect that is very key, you also agree with me that some of this process that are being set up takes time. Before you know it, the seafarer that is affected is going through a lot of persecution. When it comes to things like this, you discover that even if, like you rightly said, if the discrimination is from a superior officer, maybe the chief officer, the chief engineer or the second engineer, you discover that persecution begin to come in terms of appraisal, such that by the time the seafarer is disembarking, they give the seafarer wrong appraisal. What I would just say in this case is that for it to be faster, this area where the union also comes in such a way that when, as a seafarer, you are going through this kind of persecution and you are able to get in touch with your union, the management, and then in collaboration with the administration, this can easily be addressed so that before you know it, there is the time lag is saved, because like the process the doctor just analyzed, you agree with me, it's going to take a lot of time in terms of correspondences and what have you. But the easiest way is that if you can't get in touch with the administration so easily, you could get in touch with your union, then the union will take it up with the administration, and within a minimum time frame that can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, Barrister.
Yes, I want to add here that, well, discrimination in workplaces is not limited to seafarers. It's a global thing. You hear about it here and there. Why it is somehow peculiar with seafarers, particularly when they're on board, is that seafarers seem to have a limited choice in terms of, okay, I leave this employment, let me go for another one, and all that. And they are confined in a particular place where you see the person discriminating against you on a daily basis and all that. So somehow, I also know, because I'm privileged to work for ship owners sometimes, that there is no ship owner who would know that a particular seafarer, or there are complaints of discrimination on board, which affects the morale of the seafarer, and the ship owner will keep quiet, close eyes to it. So I think the most important thing is that it has to be communicated. The seafarer has a lot of work to do there. He must communicate it one way or the other. Pastor Vose has talked about reporting to the union. I know that there are seafarers unions, but particularly vessels that are trading in a particular marine environment. There are always unionized organization there through which they can bring this known somehow, one way or the other, through the union to the seafarer, to the ship owners. And wherever this has occurred, to my knowledge, there have been ways of addressing it by ship owners, because I can tell you, no ship owner will allow that kind of thing to persist, knowing that it will affect the safety and even security of operations on board. But importantly, it must be talked about. It must be talked about at every fora, so that when we talk about it, even those who want to start will know that if they start it, it will get to be heard and it will get to be frowned upon. So the best approach will be to continue to talk about it, to continue to take measures against it so that it does not happen in the first instance. And where it happens is addressed timeously. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for the beautiful contribution. This is an area I've handled so many directly. And then what did I do? I think I handled about 2 towards my exit before that time, about 2 directly. What happened? The seafarer reported. They called me directly. How did they get my information? It is out there in the agency as the reporting line that they have to report to. And I think that's how he called me directly and report. And what was the issue? This one has to do with wages, non-payment of wages for 2-3 months. And he's not in Nigeria. And then what he intends to do, he went as far as say, I'm going to commit suicide. So I have to engage both the captain, but again, it's very, very vital, and it is true that victimization will apply here. And I do see that happening also in most of the vessels I was able to intervene. And so the very first thing, when this happened, the very first thing, I engage the crew to know the level of complaint he has made. When I mean by level, going by the MLC procedure and so on. Of course, if a ship owner is not paying the crew, he knows he's not doing the right thing. That one is established. And depending on the work environment, what I mean by work environment, how they relate, even within the vessels, the crew will only have that confidence depending on how they relate. And if you see that this will become a threat, the seafarer know, for me to even go and complain within the board environment, he will know that it will bring about a victimization or threat to him. We have seen that happening. So what should be done? I truly also understand and I agree that issue of delay will come in. And of course, it's going to affect the mental and psychological well-being of that seaman and invariably the safety of the vessel. For example, this seafarer that reported and said, I'm going to commit suicide. And of course, if you went ahead and commit the suicide, it will affect the entire operation and it will affect the safety of the vessel as well. So every time I receive this type of complaint, I try to strike a balance. What do I mean by that? I look at the nature, I interact with the seafarer. Some will say, yes, I've reported to the next line of procedure that was laid down on board. Of course, if he has done that, fine. If he didn't do that, I will ask, why did you not report it? Because I need to have that information. So with that information, it is also a right for him to proceed to let the administration know, looking at the level of the level of safety or what might happen. So it gives me the information to now approach it or approach the captain and give him reasons. First, normally, how it works. I'm just saying practically direct how I do handle it. I first of all get connected with the captain, sometimes not through the seafarer, because I have the details. Since the vessel is trading within our locality, I have detailed information about the vessel. So I connect to the seafarer and then brings the importance of safety to both his vessel and the contribution each and every crew is making. And then here is a complaint I receive, but not making sure that at that level is still confidential and so on and so forth. Having agreed to that level and then went straight to now put it to them. We all agreed, yes. If he agree and say, yes, I have that challenge. And this is why what I have done so far or what I did not do so far. We agree. When are you going to effect this on timeline? And how quickly are you going to do that? And you need to really yes, you can understand on the part of the crew who is facing the challenge. You need to also understand on the part of the captain, the vessel, the company, and so on and so forth. Sometimes when they give you that information and you can go to the extent of even connecting with the company, be it ships agents or whatever. I've had a number of calls to, at the end of the day, bring all together to get this thing resolved quickly. But they have the right in in the line of reporting, they have the right to report to any level depending on the condition they found themselves. There is nothing wrong. But again, how it is being handled is the most important thing. But no seafarer should keep quiet, but he has to report when you know that the condition of which you want to follow the line, I mean, the procedure, is not going to, I mean, you know, it will impact on you negatively, which invariably will impact on the vessel. There is nothing wrong to move to the next level. And then how that level handles that, that is where the whole thing is. But this is a challenge. And then to administration, I will say, to administration, create awareness about reporting. So much, when I mean create awareness about reporting and the reporting procedure. Can go to media, make it louder, so that they know the procedure of reporting and they know what to do. And then the companies will be aware, yes, the administration is making so much awareness about this. Not only administration, even I've seen where company, of course, before you certify a company to have its own MLC, whatever, they will provide a reporting procedure. So these are the process by which a seafarer can quickly, he can report, follow the procedure. Administration is there, union are there, and so on. So, but then depending on the condition of which they found themselves. I think that's what I can say on this. I see someone again.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to, yes, Dr.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Maria Obugo has been putting her hands up.
Yes.
I want to hear from Maria Obugo. Her hand has been up this morning. Yes, let's hear you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
Clearly,
yes.
Loud and clear.
Yes, you pronounced my name right. I live in Ghana. My name is not often pronounced that nicely. So my name is Maria. My dad is Igbo. My mother is Ghanaian, so I live in Ghana. Yes. I've recently taken up a role as the Maritime Associate for Africa with the Climate Champions team. And I'm glad I joined this call, even though I joined late. For me, the keywords were safety, training, welfare. And I think all these things are very important, but I haven't heard decarbonization as much. And I think we need to be mindful of decarbonization because it poses a real threat to the employability of our seafarers. Why do I say that? I noticed that Dr. Conway was online, but I think he's dropped off. The IMO is working towards adopting zero-emission fuels by as early as 2030. And if that happens, 10% of the fuels that we are using in the next 5 years will be zero-emission fuels. The question is, are our seafarers ready and able to safely operate vessels in a zero-emission environment? It's very important because if they are not, then it becomes a question of employability. We wouldn't even have the jobs in the first place, let alone start talking about high salaries. So I think that as a welfare board, these conversations that you're having are excellent, but let us use our voices to advocate for training and upskilling of African seafarers to be able to operate low-emission fueled vessels. I know that the World Maritime University and IMO have created a Just Transition Task Force, which is supposed to be developing curricula for implementation in our regional maritime institutions. That project is delayed. If we have influence, we should use our voices to push for those curricula to be developed and then transferred to organizations like Regional Maritime University, etc., so that our seafarers who are being trained now will come out prepared to operate these vessels by as early as 2030. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to supporting and advocating and working together with you all in my new role. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you so much. You have introduced another angle to the conversation here today, and it's very heartwarming that this angle is introduced. Maybe Dr. Kuje and one of us here now, what's his name again now? I think in the future, even though we are doing this as a National Seafarers Welfare Board program, we would always drag in NIMASA in here officially. Officially, I'm aware that some workers in NIMASA are here, but we need to drag them in officially so that conversations like this, they would also tell us where they are in the march towards decarbonization, particularly with the 2030 timeline, in place. And that way, all of us would continue to work towards making sure that Nigerian seafarers, indeed African seafarers, fit into the qualifications that seafarers would need to possess to be able to work in the dispensation that would be the post-decarbonization era. So it is very important that conversations like this, we really have to bring in people who would come here and participate officially in a conversation like this. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Maria.
Thank you for that intervention. And Maria, yes, we've started the collaborations and make sure that we continue with that. And you're very right on that topic. And even the this year's team is talking about their contribution to making the maritime environment safer.
Yes.
Yes. So we're talking about marine environment as well as safety. And so it's actually timely. It has become the topic of the, do I say, century. In seafaring has always been faced with a number of changes that are coming. Yes, meeting up and being up to date with that is key. So thank you for that observation, and we take note of it, and then we continue to key and make sure that the relevant stakeholder, as pointed out by barristers, we bring it to their notice as well. Thank you. See another hand.